Hello and welcome to Activating Magic. I'm your host, Darla LeDoux, and I am here with the fabulous Beth Nydick. Hi, Beth.
Hi.
Thank you for being here. I am so excited to share you with people.
Oh, you're
So I'll just do the formal intro and then we'll dive in. Beth Nydick is the founder of the Fame Lab and is the go-to media expert for coaches, experts, authors, and speakers to amplify their brand presence. Known for her strategic approach and media expertise, Beth transforms media exposure into lucrative opportunities, ensuring her clients don't just shine in the spotlight, but they profit from it. And I know you have a story about that I'm excited for. So, whether it's turning heads in the industry, crafting a niche at the intersection of media and monetization, or simplifying the path to success, Beth's methods drive significant traffic and convert exposure into tangible products. She's not just creating buzz, but she's creating a legacy of success and richness for her clients. And then we have to obviously share the media. So she's been featured in Oprah, Parade, Forbes, Business Insider, Fast Company, The Drew Barrymore Show, Sherry Shepherd Show, ABC, CBS, NBC, KTLA, WPIX, and The Tonight Show. And she's also the co-author of top-rated cookbook, Clean Cocktails, Righteous Recipes for the Modern Mixologist. And I had to keep that part in because Alex's grandma gifted us your cookbook
I know,
for
isn't that
Christmas.
crazy?
I was
So
laughing so hard. I'm like, this is amazing.
I
So,
love that.
hi.
Hi, hun. How I'm so happy to be here. And I so appreciate you reading that whole thing because sometimes I forget, right? Like what I
Who
what
you
I've
are.
accomplished, who I am, what I've done. I've been at this game like you
Mhm.
for a long time and it's changed and it's iterated and I've pivoted, which I hate that word, but I've changed what I've
Mhm.
done to match where my where my magic actually is.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, it
honestly,
takes a while, right?
it really does. And it's not about niching down. It's like what's my natural like for me it's strategy. Like what
Mhm.
strategy naturally comes and I'm finding or I found and that's why I leaned in is that it's really the brand, the message and the motive. Putting those all
Mhm.
together so people understand like
Mhm.
who you are and what you're about because when you try to have a opinionless, emotionless,
Mhm.
faceless brand, you go nowhere.
Yeah. I want to add magic.
Yes.
But let's talk about motive and your motive. So how did you come to help people really monetize media?
Well, so my background is being a former TV producer, and I had been a food blogger. That's where the book comes in. I had been a food blogger for a while, but really understood that my talents were more geared towards helping people in strategy. So I literally sat in this room. I was like, okay, Beth, what do you want to do next? What do you want to talk about next? Where do you want to be next? And since I had been a TV producer and had been in media my entire adult life, I was like, okay, let's teach people about media. So I really looked at the landscape and all the
Mhm.
amazing women that teach media, but what I saw was the same thing. How to get media, how to meet a journalist, how to get on this, how to get on that, which is all good, but I know we talked about
Mhm.
it. That's not actually the hard part. The
Yeah.
hard part is what you do with it so that intentional money comes into your life and you can actually
Mhm.
share your magic, create an impact, or whatever your end goal is. You can do that honestly with what your talents are and who you actually really are.
I love that honestly and with what your talents are because I have had a love-hate relationship with the idea of media,
I know.
in taking some of the trainings um where it's been guided to get the soundbite, right? Like the shortest possible thing you can say so someone can feel like they got, a hit somehow from your 5 tips to blah, blah, blah. And they're not actually doing anything with that, or it's not going deeper at all. So,
Yeah, it's not about actual making a emotional connection to the listener. And we're talking
Right.
about podcasts here. You could be on a podcast and give the best tips and give all the great information and make
Mhm.
it sound really great, or you could tell amazing stories, talk honestly about your business and what you do with your clients and the case
Mhm.
studies or the awareness or the difference you've made in their lives. That's, I think, the way that you and I and people that are like-minded like us
Mhm.
want to do it.
Yeah.
Want to create that opportunity for them to share whatever their magic is in a way that feels honest and real. Like, Darla, and your listeners don't know, but I'm from Jersey. And there's only one thing that we do in Jersey is we tell you like it is. And I've created a brand around telling you what like it is and giving you honesty and telling you to
Mhm.
ask for what you want. Like that's where my brand comes from. And layered on top of that is the
Mhm.
strategy and the practical things I can tell you. But if I didn't connect with my audience on that honest level,
Mhm.
you can't connect. And instead of like buying all the courses and doing all the things, if you just took a moment to see what that message is in your gut that
Yeah.
you really want everybody to know but are too afraid to tell everybody, if you can land on
Mm.
that, that's actually where the success in your
Yeah.
business come from.
Yeah. It's interesting as wrote pitches for my assignments in my little class I was taking. I was like, I would rather die than actually go do this. Right. Because it's like my soul doesn't know how to not go deep. So,
That's
yeah.
why I like podcasts,
Mhm.
and probably you would too, and other people, our audience that's listening. Like
Yeah.
if you like to go deep right away, then you find a podcast host that goes deep right away, and you have that
Mhm.
real soul conversation, and you have that conversation that can actually make a difference in a listener's life. I was actually on a call today, and I gave a presentation, and afterwards, this beautiful woman asked me a question about showing up on video, and the conversation we had, I know made a difference in her life. And that's where
Yeah.
those things come from. Being able to connect
Mhm.
through the screen because I'm
Mhm.
connecting on what makes me tick and the information I have in a way that you can see it and be vulnerable enough to ask the
Yeah.
questions in the room so that you can get somewhere.
I know you're super passionate about people actually monetizing where they show up. And I know you have a story of not doing that.
No, I didn't. It's that gut punch story. So one of my first national TV spots was for the Dr. Oz show. And I had hired like the blogging coach and made sure my website was ready and I had enough storage so that my website wouldn't go down. And I had the perfect opt-in and I did all this stuff. And the night before, I remember finishing it up and closing my computer, very happy with myself. And when it had my show, and then the next day checked to see all the email addresses that I had in my form from the opt-in, and I had zero. What I had mistakenly done is unpublished my lead magnet instead of hitting publish.
Eek.
Sometimes I wonder what
Mhm.
I would be doing now if that had been different. Like, would my life be different because I
Wow.
hadn't done that? But that's what I mean of like, that's a real story, something that really happened to me. Honestly, something that took me a little while to share because it's embarrassing that I screwed up so bad and this is stuff I should
Mhm.
know.
Well,
But
you
now,
did know.
right. Well, now I know. But when people are listening to me tell that story, like on this podcast or on stages that I do it on, it's that real connection. It's like, oh, I've made mistakes like
Mhm.
that. So
Yeah.
many people come up to me afterwards or they DM me, they're like, oh my God, I did the same thing. So it's that
Wow.
connection point that somebody's like, okay, Beth did something that she's not proud of, but she's sharing with us so we can learn from it. And then they're leaning in. What's
Mhm.
next? What is she going to say next? Because now they're interested in what
Mhm.
I have to say rather than, I help small business owners, blah, blah, blah. Like, who cares?
Mhm.
It's a different level of intimacy and emotion.
I want to dive into motive, but I first want to just bring in the magic a little bit. So, because we know each other IRL,
Yep.
I know your mom is witchy.
Yes, she is.
And so you grew up around that.
I did.
Talk to me a little bit about how you experience your own inner guidance.
I think it comes from not being connected to the outcome. And I only say that,
Mhm.
which I'm always honest about this stuff. Somebody gave me that reflection a couple weeks ago in a call that I did. She was like, everything you said today, you are not connected to the outcome. And honestly, that's the way I was brought up. Like, we don't worry about
Mm-hmm.
things until there's time to worry about them. And if
Mm-hmm.
you do the work, something will happen. But if you're not connected to it, it allows you the space to do whatever you think up. The possibilities are endless. And when you make nothing mean nothing, or when you can make nothing mean everything, that's what gets in your way. That's what stops you. That's where the
Mm-hmm.
imposter syndrome comes and all the other stuff. But the ability for me to say, it doesn't matter, I'm just going to try, or I have this crazy idea to write a cocktail book, even though I'm not a bartender and I don't drink that much, I allow myself the space to do it and to continue going with it because the only thing I actually know is that whatever I set out to do, I can accomplish.
Why did you write a cocktail book?
I saw a place in the market for it. That's where that strategy comes back in. That's like
Uh-huh.
hard business stuff. I live in New York, outside New York
Mhm.
City. All of the cocktail menus in New York City stopped having like those sugary, syrupy drinks on it and
Mhm.
started having herbs. Not all of them, a
Mhm.
few of them. And then I was in LA and I saw the same thing. And I came back and I said to my husband, I'm like, I'm writing a cocktail book. He was like, what? You're what? And I was like, I'm writing a cocktail book. And this is where the universe comes in, Darla. Like, so I had the idea. I met this woman at an event who I never met before. And I said to her, hey, can we have coffee? I have an idea that we can
Mhm.
collaborate. She thought I was going to come in, like, let's do a detox because we're both in health and wellness. And
Uh-huh.
I was like, no, no, let's write a book. She was like, what? And then thank God the universe brought me Tara Racioli, her company's Highway to Well. She was like, let's do it. Why not? Unbeknownst to both of us, one of her clients happened to be a New York Times bestseller who introduced us to her agent who took us on. And then we had a book deal like months later.
Hmm.
Never happens. I said this to somebody who's in the book in the publishing world, and she was like, "Did that really happen?" I think she like didn't believe me at first, but that was
Wow.
the universe holding me and holding the space for
Hmm.
a crazy idea to allow me to not only pursue it, but actually allow it to come to fruition. And I have to tell you, it's still on Amazon. I still see it in a bookstore, and your grandma still gets it. So
And it got you on Dr. Oz.
it's gotten me on Dr. Oz, KTLA, the Sherry Shepherd show. I'm still trying to get on the Drew Barrymore show to make some cocktails. We'll see if it happens. No, it will happen.
Mm.
Let's take that out. Let's take that off. It'll
When
happen.
it happens,
When it
we'll
happens.
hear
Thank you.
about it.
Yep.
This is reminding me when you said I saw a hole in the market. And I remember when we spoke about your magic before and the recognition and like part of how it works for you is you see the whole, you see what's not being said. Like, what is this big gap? When you think about, helping your clients with their brand and their message and how how does all that work for you? The input from them, the market, the like you're constantly studying media. Like, tell us about how your magic supports people.
It's conversation. And honestly, I get downloads, I get feelings, but it's asking my clients. Like, I actually have a new client who's an author. And I think she's like, are you going to ask me more questions? I must have asked her 35 questions, right? To getting her to talk and getting
Mhm.
to see the structure of what it is. And then it's just in my innate ability. I can just see the things that aren't happening, the things that aren't
Mhm.
working. And when we fill those holes, like a better lead magnet or a better funnel, but it's also like
Mhm.
the intention behind things. And that's where we were talking about
Mhm.
motive a little bit
Yeah.
before, right? I can see what your motive should be to create the opportunity of what you want to have happen next.
Ooh, say more about that, what your motive should
I have a
be.
friend who has a book coming out with a big publisher, and the conversation we were having was, that PR person is not going to have a lot of time for me, which is very true. Publishing firms have one PR person for like 25 titles, and unless you're bigger on
Mhm.
the range, you don't get a lot of attention. So I came up with a strategy for her to connect with a PR person. And instead of asking what they were doing for her, she was going to connect with them. How can we collaborate? How can you assist me on getting this done? And how can we work together? I haven't heard back from her. It was only the other day, but it's about that's kind of like what my magic is. I can see those things that she can be doing that she's not doing, or the
Mhm.
client who like their launch process isn't working anymore. Tell me about it and I can see it. But honestly, it's one of those things that I've just been able to do my entire life. It's my given magic by the universe that
Mhm.
I can see what you're doing and I either, I don't know if I hear it or I just feel it.
Mm.
You know, like I went to an event recently, I spoke, and afterwards, this young lady came up to me, and I just looked at her and I was like, "You're just terrified. It's okay." And just tears. And I know you do the same thing. Like I can feel it, I can see it. I can't smell and taste it, but I can hear it. And I think it's been my whole life that I've been able to do that, but
Mhm.
not until probably my 40s that I understood how I could use it. And that's what I
Mm.
teach a lot of my clients to do is like, instead of getting my advice, what do you think?
Mhm.
What do you think you should do? Because we already know what we should be doing. We just usually need permission for it.
Mhm.
So between the universe giving me answers and my own 25 years in the media and digital business, kind of combining those two, being able to support people in that way, I think that's where all my stuff comes from.
I'm
My
thinking of
stuff.
like speaking out what you were feeling from the woman at the event.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean, I hear the Jersey love.
yeah, exactly.
And also, when I work with clients in our certification, there's a lot of like, okay, why don't you just say the thing that your magic knows, right? But we don't typically
Nope, that was
because
brought up
it's
too.
not appropriate or whatever. So
If you
how do
felt
you think that freed her?
Oh, well, I wasn't brought up like that. I was brought up with, what do you think? Tell us what it is. Stand up for yourself. Like I wasn't brought up with that. Like a lot of women my age was like,
Mhm.
look pretty in the corner. And then when I meet younger women who's not that it's her mom's fault, but she was brought up a certain way. She was brought up to not believe in herself. She was brought up to not understand that she had her own power or her own magic. And when I
Mhm.
identified what it was after she stopped crying, and we had a whole conversation about it, she was just scared to be herself.
Mhm.
She had been bullied in school when she was younger, and nobody was saying to
Yeah.
her, it's okay to be you. I
Mhm.
like you. You're amazing. You're great. Whatever it is she needed to hear, she needed people around who were going to start doing that.
Mhm.
She actually later joined my program, and she's in a community of women that are about building each other up and taking risks and doing the hard things and following my strategies. So not only do they get to move their brand forward, but they also get to pad their bank account while they're doing it.
Mhm. You said, I like you. And isn't that so much what so many of us are looking for?
Oh, 100%.
Mhm.
Most of us were not taught to like ourselves.
Yeah.
I think most of us were taught that there's not possibilities. I find that people are really thinking in this cylinder, and
Mm.
I felt that way in my life before too. But I think it's like sometimes when I was still trying to figure out what I was doing, I always felt like I was in like a plexiglass cylinder that I couldn't get out.
Mm.
It was like
Mhm.
thick plexiglass, and it was kind of just
Mhm.
surrounding me. And until I was like, okay, but what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? What's your intention? What do you want that my intention is I want my own TV show one day. And as soon as I
Mhm.
was like, I started voicing that and telling people that and making moves to that, and then I can actually see that that can happen. I was able to kind of break out of that because I
Mm.
wasn't confined by, I have to have a course, I have to have a program, I have to have an offer. All that stuff came
Mm.
together. But when I knew what my motive was, where I wanted to go with all this stuff, that's what was able
Mm.
to let me be free and
Mm.
be able to be myself. That's what that's what led me instead of having to have my hair straight and makeup on, do live videos, just hit record
Mhm.
or hit, you know,
Mhm.
go on my Instagram and be like, I'm gonna do a podcast with Darla later. I'll let you know. Yeah. So there's a
And
thought process to it.
what did it take to get honest about your motive?
What did it take? It took, you know, it took my kids to reflect it back to me.
Mm.
Like I didn't, so my kids are in college and I didn't realize what I was saying to my clients until my kid. So their like TV hangout room was right outside my office and they would play on their VR and listen. And they would start asking me questions about what I was saying at dinner.
Mm.
So they were really the ones that were like, "Oh, mom, you really helped that girl. I was listening, da 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 da," or I really liked your idea about this, da da da, or I heard you say this, and I'm going to do this in my class. And I was like, "Oh, right." I needed that reflection. I needed that mirror for somebody to be like, this is your innate ability. This is what you just do naturally. So just lean into it versus, and the other part of it, I stopped listening to everybody else. And I stopped scrolling and looking and seeing what everybody else was doing. I know sometimes like not doing that research isn't best for your business, but the place that my
Mhm.
business was at, I was like, I don't need to scroll and feel
Mhm.
badly that I'm not doing this, or I have to download this, or I have the wrong
Mhm.
coach, or I have the wrong. It was making me crazy. So as soon as I stopped
Mhm.
the scroll and
Mhm.
just and really said to myself, you know what you need to do. You don't need to
Yeah.
learn anything else. You need a team member to help you do this. Just put one foot in front of the other and do something that's going to get you to your
Mhm.
goal every single day.
You said like that's not always good because maybe I don't remember the exact words you used, but I think I just learned something from what you said because for me in my journey, I was very much listening to everybody and doing all the things. And, I talk about sometimes in my early coaches, like I did everything they told me to do, like the best student, of course. And then I also did like the things that I felt intuitively guided to do. And so I was just doing a lot because I was doing both. And, but I did get to see that the intuitively guided things tended to do better
Oh
than
yeah.
I'm the good girl following the rules. And I kind of learned how to merge them, but I really, once I started tapping into source, I stopped consuming for a while. Like I still always had a life coach and, would go to events and group like to get that inspiration and keep my energy clear. But the formulas like literally stopped.
I'm so
And yeah, it was like so important. And now I'm like I'm taking classes and I'm learning things. But I trust myself now to go, I, okay, that doesn't apply to me. Yes, this resonates. Before I really didn't. Like for
yeah.
a while, I needed cold turkey.
No, I did the same thing. I was best in the class. I did the most engagement. But what came up for me listening to you is like, so I remember like taking a gummy and sitting on my chair in my room and getting all these downloads, and which was just like all the stress and all the normal stuff was out of the way because I was more
Mhm.
relaxed, and being able to get those downloads, which were actually just my brain being able to like relax and think about things
Mhm.
versus a go, go, go. When I was able to stop having to take a gummy to do that, that's when a lot of the things changed for me too. In that the kids
Mm.
giving me reflection, having some success, but being like, okay, I can't work 10 hours a day. I can't sit here 10 hours a day. This isn't working for me. What are the things that I
Yeah.
actually want to be doing? And I took a lot of that stuff off my plate and was like, okay, this is my one product. This is the one lane. I know the other things I need to do to support this one lane. I am so much happier. I am sleeping so much better. And
Mm.
honestly, I think my clients are getting better results because I'm calmer and I can see them
Mm.
more clearly. It had to be a month ago now. I was just having a day and I and the beginning of my classes for my Fame Lab, which is my 6 month group mentorship mastermind, I some of the classes were like catch ups, like what's new
Mhm.
and good. And by the third person, I am hysterical crying, and just like one of these, hysterical crying because they're all doing amazing, and I made it about me.
Mm.
Sometimes I do make it about me, and I was like, you guys, I needed this so much today.
Mm.
And it was so nice to get support from people who are paying me to support them. And that was okay too.
Yeah.
They got a lot from me being like, I'm having a day and I need you guys to tell me that like I'm
Mhm.
helping you and I'm doing a good job because I need that response.
Yeah.
And it was a safe place for me to be vulnerable and to get that information from them.
Mm.
Now with that, I can tack on everything else I'm doing because I know that this framework and what I've created for the Fame Lab works, which is
I
really
love it.
nice.
Yes. Well, and talk a little bit about the process of creating the fame formula.
Yeah, the Fame formula really came from the procedures and the SOPs that I created for my own VA and my own team to be able to promote and amplify and leverage all the media that I've been doing. Because you said the media at the top. I've been on all the media everybody wants. The
Mm-hmm.
problem that happens in the marketplace is that you're on the media that you've always wanted to be on, then you do nothing with it. You actually share it once and then move on. And what I created with the
Yeah.
fame formula is not only a system of how you promote, strategically promote what you're doing, but also how you're ensuring that you're continuing to get yourself media and visibility all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't have media, you can't leverage it. So you need to have that influx. And the way that it's taught by other people, it takes hours and it's research and do it. Honestly, everybody, it really doesn't. If you have 20 minutes a
Mm-hmm.
day to have focused time on doing different tasks in media, it's very capable of getting it done. That's how I do it. And I try to
Mm-hmm.
get on new platforms all the time. But understanding that when you get on the platform or when you book the podcast, that's the beginning of the conversation, not the end of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
People think that they're going to be on Forbes, they're going to have an article in Forbes, and their whole life's going to change. Doesn't
And
happen.
so is a lot of it repurposing the content?
It's repurposing, it's sharing, it's teasing, and
Mm,
it's a lot of it is telling everybody you know what you're doing.
yeah.
If I'm going to be on this podcast today. I did a video. I can't wait to record with Darla. I'm so excited to see her. Tomorrow I'll probably do a reflection. We talked about magic. We talked about this. We talked about that. You know what? We talked about this,
Mhm.
but you're gonna have to wait till the episode comes out. And when it comes out, I'll let you know. Right. And then when it comes out, doing the same kind of thing. I have to tell you, I get more DMs from podcast hosts of my own podcast
Mm,
appearances and my clients saying you are the most downloaded podcast. That's because I'm telling
mhm,
everybody about it. I'm not sharing it in my story
mhm.
once. And that
Yeah.
promotion strategy that's before it, during it, and after it, it's really
Mm,
a promotion strategy. And then, but layered on top of that is
mm,
your motive and your intention strategy of what you're actually saying on the podcast, how you're saying it on the podcast, what you're doing. Like I saw you
mhm,
smile when I mentioned the Fame Lab. So
mhm.
those that are still
Yeah.
listening, I know you guys are all enthralled to what we're saying. I've already told you what my offers are,
Mhm,
the what it is. I've told you who it's for, and I've also told you success that's happened in there. And I didn't tell
mhm,
you sleep, I didn't tell you salesy, and I didn't say, hey, this is my thing.
mhm,
It was in storytelling, it was about matter of fact of what I'm doing.
mhm,
And that's a lot of what I teach in my program so that you
mhm,
can naturally share your gifts and share your offers and not feel sleazy about it and understand
mhm.
that you only have a few minutes to get people to keep listening. Because if you start a podcast and you're like, I help magic, I'd be out, right? Like, I'm not, magic would be my word, but that help, I can't. I help small business owners find their magic. I don't care what you do. Tell me how this oppresses me. Tell me how I need to listen to change my life. Tell me something
Mhm,
that's going to pertain to me because a lot of people show up for an interview because they're going to give a great interview. My clients and my friends, because I love helping them as well, show up for interviews with real intention about making real connections and making real revenue from that interview.
mhm,
It's a different point of
mhm.
view and a different intention of what you're doing.
I love it. I wrote down tease really big on my paper, not a gift of mine. So I'm taking that.
Good. I have a
Tease
whole
more.
formula. I'll send it to you. This formula because people don't think about what they're actually saying on the podcast and how that's going to really represent what they say. Because yeah, you could
Mhm.
repurpose the content, but there's nothing good to repurpose. And I call it a long sound bite because a sound bite's short and it doesn't give you a lot of the information. Long sound bites have the information and the feeling that go together.
Mm,
But when you're on a
love that.
podcast, if you're not showing up and have a plan, like a
Mhm.
client of mine said, I just booked this podcast and I asked her what, wanted to talk about what we're going to say in the podcast. She was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll just have a conversation." My head explodes when I hear that. Why would you
Mm.
want to just our Darla, our conversations, we laugh a lot, but they're not that interesting to other people. Like to be honest. When you go on a podcast, understanding what you want to be asked, what you want to talk
Mhm.
about, or if they want to have just a conversation, then you intentionally show up knowing what you're going to talk about
Yeah.
and answer the questions in the way that guides the listener to want to be a part of your systems or be a part of your community
Mhm. Yeah.
rather than like giving a great interview.
There's the strategy piece that I'm hearing.
Yeah.
in weaving in the stories, regardless of the questions that are asked, right?
Yeah.
That's the strategy. And then there's the energy, I would say, of how they feel me.
Yeah.
And how do you support people in that piece?
It's a lot of permission to allow you yourself to be seen, heard by an audience
Mhm.
that doesn't know you, without the fear of judgment, without the fear of imposter syndrome and all the things that we put in our
Mhm.
way. It's really about being yourself and showing up in a way. And I'm not going to say authentically, because I feel like that brings up a lot of different judgments. It's really
Mhm.
what I want for people listening, and for what I want for each and every one of my clients is when people meet you in person, I want them to say, oh my God, she's just like the person I heard on the podcast.
Mhm.
And that's harder than
Yeah.
people realize it is.
Mhm.
Like, I'm going to give you an example. So I was watching the Today Show last month, and Juliana Hough, who's a beautiful artist, she's the dancer, she
Mhm.
has stars, all this stuff. So she wrote like a magic teen novel,
Okay.
and she's on the Today Show. She's on the couch with Hoda and Jenna, and all Hoda is trying to get her to do is tell a story about herself.
Mhm.
And she keeps going back to the book, very high level. When creating this book, or when I was doing,
Mhm.
this woman wouldn't tell a story about herself. I was
Yes.
screaming at the screen. I was like, "Who prepped you for this?" But it was like so. It's like it's a side note. When I'm watching TV, and I hope other people see this too, like you can see who should be interviewed and who should not be interviewed and should just be cute. Because there's one gentleman who I think is adorable. He is in, he's got red hair, he's Scottish, he's beautiful, he has this whole HBO show, but he is such a bad interview. And if you notice, he never interviews because he shouldn't be
Mm.
interviewing. But Julianne
Mhm.
Hough, who's been in this for 20 years, should know how to give a good interview. And I use that as an
Yeah.
example because I didn't care about the book. I wanted to know what Juliana was like in high school and a story about that
Mhm.
instead of this like high level
Yeah.
magic. She didn't even say how magic fit into her life.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
if you or I go on a podcast and we talk about how our magic has really filled all the holes in our life and the pockets and the story of how we became who we are and why we do what we do, that's a lot more interesting and a lot more
Yeah.
connected to an audience member.
It's such a good example. And I have had those conversations where it's like, how many different angles can I go to try to get a personal, something personal?
Right. Like if you're not going
Yeah.
to be personal, then don't go on a podcast
Yeah.
because it goes back to that old adage like I don't want people to care what I'm selling. I just want them to hang out with me.
Hmm.
And we've all done that. We all like that person so much. We're like, whatever you're selling, I'm buying. I don't care. Right? That's like the dream. But that's really what we want. We want people to understand
Yeah.
how we solve their problem and that I'm their person. And how the
Hmm.
hell are you gonna know that I'm your person unless I let you see me?
Hmm. Yeah. And like, what is it going to feel like to work with you?
Right. I did in that class I taught today. She was like, how do I get myself to go on camera? And I this is what I said to her because it's true. I said, if you were my client, I would probably push you and push you and push you until you cried and then you do it. And she was like, yeah, probably. And with my Jersey love, right? Because we're not doing things because we can't. We're not doing things because we're scared. But when it comes to
Mhm.
video,
I had a story. I was just thinking of when I went to my first like big event in this space. And I didn't really, I was like new, fresh off the farm or whatever, not actually a farm, but, and they were offering, a high level coaching program. I had never heard of this, had never done anything like that. So that was a whole piece of my experience. And there's like 800 people in the room or something. It's like a pretty big event. And I went to the microphone to share something, which I'm like, who is that person that, fresh off the boat got up and, but
love
I,
it.
I like, I had to, what I know it was something about my dad and money. That's all I remember. And I was wearing a bright red jacket. After I went and sat down, I asked my question, whatever, and I probably cried and whatever, and went and sat down. And then the next break, people rushed up to me. And the main question I got was, what did it feel like to talk to him?
Wow.
That was the question.
That's
It
so
was
interesting.
like, did you feel heard? Did it feel safe? That was the question. And it's like they all watched it. How, I mean, I don't know what was going on that was the thing, but people want to know how it feels to work with you.
Yeah. How it feels to be loved by a Jersey girl.
Yeah. Because, these people, I'm assuming, are considering whether they were going to hire him. So they're like, oh,
Well, do you remember how did it feel?
yeah, it was great. I
Okay.
felt really grateful for what he contributed. Yeah.
That's interesting that that was. And like, what does
Yeah.
that say about the other people in the room that that was their first question? And it wasn't like I
Right.
had to say or, any of the kind of, sorry about your dad or like whatever it was. But that
Hmm.
was the question. It was like they couldn't get a feel from the stage. They were asking you, which is so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I don't know. I mean, he's very tough love also. So he might have said some incisive things, I'm sure. I remember what I walked away with from the conversation. But yeah, that was what people wanted to know. What did it feel like to talk to him?
That's crazy. I know there's coaches out there, and we've talked about that previously, that all they do is yell at you and they make you cry and they just push you. And it's like, yeah, I don't need that doesn't motivate me. It motivates other people.
Mm-mm.
I know this coach makes a lot of money, but
Hmm.
that just wouldn't it I would cry. Like I would cry in a ball in the corner. Like I can't that much
You would
negative
not.
energy.
I
Well, not, I take that back. I would probably yell at them
think
and
you would leave.
yeah, no, and then I would cry in the hotel room. I'm very sensitive on the inside. I'm mushy on the outside, and then there's a hard layer, and then there's very sensitive. I'm a middle child, which is a whole different thing. But what we're talking about is people actually getting to know you from the verbiage that you use, from the intentions
Yeah.
that you have, and also from the goals that you set for yourself.
Mm.
The goal isn't to be on the podcast,
Hmm.
right? The goal is to get the next podcast. The goal is to get a client. The goal is to be a TEDx speaker,
Hmm.
have your own TV show. Like, what is that bigger goal? And how is this interview or this conversation going to get you closer to your goal? That's
Hmm.
what the intention has to be. Giving a great interview is a given. If you're not giving
Yeah.
great interviews, that's a problem. Like
Yeah.
that's not your whole intention. Or to layer on top of that, if we weren't friends, how are we establishing a friendship so that we can say, "Hey, this was
Mhm.
amazing. I loved interviewing with you. Would you want to do a master class? Can we do an email
Yes.
swap?" Like I don't know why people stop at the
Hmm.
conversation and not move through
Yeah.
it to have a relationship or a collaboration ship above that. Because if you both come to it with the same values, it makes no sense to not go anywhere with it. Just as it
Right.
makes no sense to be on something and share it in your story once and then never do it again. Forget
How do you really feel?
it makes no sense, and
Uh,
it just means to me that people are treating their media like it's nothing, like it's
mhm.
a throwaway,
Mhm.
because they don't believe that it's actually going to make a difference in their
Mhm.
business or that it matters in their business. And I
Mhm.
don't know anything more fun than talking about something you're passionate about with a friend for an hour. Like, what's
Yeah.
better than that? And then
Yeah.
getting paid for it on the other side because people can hear what you're saying and they can hear the relationship.
The belief creates the reality, right? So if you're not believing it matters.
Or it doesn't work for you. When people say
Mhm.
that to me, they're like, well, I hired a PR firm and I took this class, but PR doesn't work for me. I'm like,
Mm.
no, you didn't do anything with your PR. You didn't work for it. Honestly, so I had a PR firm in
Mhm.
2020. Yeah, 2020. And I stopped serving clients in that way because I wasn't getting their business anywhere. I was getting them on
Mhm.
TV and Business Insider and Forbes and all the stuff, but actually making a difference in their
Yeah.
business. Like they would stop paying me and then nothing would happen.
Mhm.
So I started working with them and seeing where it was, and doing what I do now is a lot less stress than an agency. And those that are listening have agencies that know what I'm talking about, right? I wanted to live the lifestyle that I wanted and serve people in the way
Mhm.
that I could, which is means really tactical and really understanding who they are and where they could go with their business.
Mhm.
One of the things that we did in this iteration of the Fame Lab is we gave everyone a moniker.
Mhm.
They are leaning into it.
Mm.
It's really amazing to see people take ownership of a phrase or a name that they've come
Yeah,
up with.
like what are some of them?
The modern oracle is one of them,
Mm.
and the wellness sommelier is another one of them.
Mm.
Yeah, like really things that we can really hook everything they do to their persona, their relationships, their business, their magic, and really help elevate who they are and how they show up in the media. It's been
Mm.
amazing. It really has. This group of women are just like in it, and it's really nice to be able to
Mm.
work with that kind of community.
Fun fact, I interviewed the modern oracle today.
Did you really?
Yes.
She's amazing. I'm taking her intuition class. She's,
Oh, nice.
yeah,
I just said to her, I'm like, I might need to take that class. That sounds really fun.
that's so random, Darla.
Well, we all met at the same time, actually. Or I mean, we met her at the same time, I think.
I didn't remember meeting her.
Oh,
Yeah, she knows
well,
that. So
that is random then.
she was like, no, we met. And I was like, I met so many people that day.
Hmm.
I just didn't remember meeting her until I looked
Mhm.
back and I was like, oh yeah, I did meet you. Oh, I'm so glad you guys connected. She's
Yeah.
amazing. She's amazing.
Hmm.
And when we she decided on that and she leaned into it, all these amazing things are happening.
I love that so much.
These are
I
like two.
love that so much because we talked about coming out of the spiritual closet. So
Yeah.
that definitely helps.
Oh my God, my whole body has the chills. I'm so excited.
Uh-huh.
So cool.
Yay. It's working.
Thank you. I love a good message from the universe. Sometimes we need those, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Sometimes we always need those. But the people in my that come into my community are on the precipice of going somewhere and doing something big.
Hmm.
You just need that support to get there. And that's why I am
Yeah.
in certain groups, or I am, I have a peer mastermind that I work in that I've been doing for like the last, I don't know, 3 years that just sometimes you just need to dip in, dip out. And
Mm.
that's what I'm finding, that where I'm really like what I'm doing now is how to make 10K for your next podcast interview. I'm using all of my systems and
Mm.
my formulas and all my stuff to really just focus on that. And that's scary in itself that I'm
Hmm.
just doing this one
To
thing. It's
narrow. Yeah.
really, really
But
narrow,
I
but I'm
could help so many people with everything.
right. I can do this, I can do speaking, I can do television, I can do
Mhm.
this. But I was like, this is attainable, practicable, right? Everyone can get on a podcast. Everyone
Yeah.
that's listening, if you're not on a podcast, you're not trying, right? There's somebody who either has one or knows somebody who has one that all you need to do is ask.
Hmm.
And you can be on one. It's not very
Yeah.
difficult, but being able to leverage it and use it for good, meaning for your business and for your clients and for people listening, that's the hard part. And being
Hmm.
able to help people through that and understand where they're going and what they're doing, that's like, it's heaven to me.
I love it. What would be, I know you have a checklist that's your free gift
Yep.
for making 10K from a podcast. Part of what's clicking in for me is I have people that I pay to repurpose my podcast, and I'm sick of seeing the like, oh, there's the reel of the right. And so I wrote down T's and I'm thinking about, I mean, that's simple, right? Like I know I've watched you do it when we've been on Zoom before, like taking the
Yeah.
pictures and stuff. But I guess I'm percolating on this hands-on piece.
Okay.
And that's where I am is kind of like I went through my divorce and I was kind of leaning back and I brought in team to do things and kind of distant from really being in the energy of how I used to be in business, right? So I went through this season of that and I'm getting back hands on. That's where I am.
Awesome.
And you're super hands on. Like I think that's part of what's jumping out at me as a theme in this interview is like you want to know that your clients are getting booked and you're there with them. Like they can't not do it. Um,
They have to
what?
do it. That's,
Yeah.
honestly, that's the way that I wanted to be served. And I really had a
Hmm.
hard time finding somebody who serves me that way. And that's what I
Yeah.
went to the peer kind of stuff. So I
Hmm.
wanted to be that. I started off doing one-on-ones where I was like, here's the with this is many classes or meetings we have a month, and then I'm available to you 24/7. Meaning you can text me on Vox or you can do whatever. I'm not one of those people who, if it's not time to talk to you, I
Hmm.
won't talk to you. because that's what I
Yeah.
was hitting. Like, hey, I have a quick question. Can you just,
Yeah.
we'll talk about it at our next class. And I was like, that next class is next week. I'm doing stuff.
Yeah.
When I started helping people in that way, and that's one of the reasons I keep the cohorts of the Fame Lab small, so that I really can get to know everyone's business
Hmm.
and I can see what they need versus what the Oracle needs versus the sommelier needs and versus
Hmm.
what everybody needs in their business because that's what lights me up. I could create one of those businesses where I'm just out and just buy my product, but that
Hmm.
doesn't fulfill me, doesn't allow me to use my
Yeah.
magic because I need to talk to people. Like hot seat coaching is where you see my magic the best.
Yeah.
It really is. Like that's the piece that I really love. Or just talking to a friend and being like, hey, let's
Mhm.
do A, B, and C. But finding the people who want you to actually win and not just pay you was a difficult
Yes.
thing to do.
Well, and I feel the pendulum swinging that way. So thankfully,
Oh,
let's
100%. I
I'll
think
up
that,
the integrity.
yeah, the bro marketing is kind of out. And a lot of the people that came in post pandemic haven't made it and they went back to
Mm.
their jobs, which is a whole other conversation. And I think that it's now we're much more thoughtful about where we're spending our money and who we're spending our money
Mhm.
with.
Mhm.
So it used to be I could do like a 20-minute class and everyone would sign up. And it's not like that anymore because they really want to see if I'm their person. And that's one of the reasons that I
Mhm.
do so much visibility. So I have a launch, like I told you, I have a launch coming up. I have 8 podcasts coming out between now and then. I have 4 stages, and I think I have 3 more community talks. That's
Mhm.
hundreds of people I'm going to be in front of that I get to do
Yeah.
this with because
Yeah.
that's the magic that people can see when I do my stuff.
Mhm. Okay, so tell us about the gift.
So the gift is how to make 10K for your next podcast interview. And it's literally a checklist, the things that you are to do once you book a podcast. You can use it for community talk, regular talk, anything you're doing visibility. But it's what the 5 steps you do before an interview, during an interview, and after an interview so that you
Mm.
can leverage
Simple.
it, amplify it. And I made it really simple. And I want to say this all the things in the podcast, it's a lot. I call it heavy load, right? There's light,
Mm.
medium, and heavy load. As long as you do one of those 3 sections after
Mm.
or during or before, everything you do, every interview you have, every time you're out there, it's going to make a difference in your business. And it's
Mm.
literally the checklist that I use for me, for my clients that have found success over the years. So if you're interested in
Mm.
actually making money from your visibility and your podcast interviews, you can go to the notes. You can go to my link in bio and my
Mhm.
website or Instagram. Find me anywhere at Beth Nydick,
Mhm.
and you too can create revenue from your interviews.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, last question.
Oh,
If someone is listening to this and they're magical secretly, but maybe no one in their life is, following their intuition, vibrantly alive, doing what they love, and they feel like the crazy one, what would you say to them?
come sit next to me. That's what I would say. Come hang out with
Mhm.
me in my group. That those are the people that I want to be with.
Mhm.
Those are the people that I
Mhm.
want listening to what their body has to say to them, what the universe or source has to say to them, and understanding that they
Mhm.
need a place for growth because that's the place,
Mhm.
right? If no one's seeing you who you are, you need to find a place that's safe that everyone's going to see
Yeah.
who you are and tell you how great that person is. So if
Mhm.
that's what your issues are, again, come sit next to me.
Get some Jersey love.
A seltzer and some lemon, and we're good.
When you said that, I'm instantly like, okay, wait, is there room on that couch right there? I'm like,
Well,
when's Beth's next event?
when I met Darla for the first time, we were in a room together, right? Where there's a big table, and I was like, I'm sitting next to her. I don't know who she is, but that you emanated this energy that I
Hmm.
knew was my energy in a place
Yeah.
that I wanted to be. And those are
Yeah.
and I honestly, those are the people I attract, like the modern oracle and the sommelier and the other people that I work with. You have to be in that space. Otherwise, I'm not your person.
Oh my gosh. And isn't it so fun to be at the place where you can just recognize your people?
Yeah. I think it's also being 50. I think
Yeah.
that also gives me a little cachet. But did you have this ability growing up that you knew it was an ability? Like when you were in a room,
No.
okay.
Mm-mm.
I've always kind
Mm-mm.
of felt that. Well, I grew up with witchy mom. So it was a lot
Yeah.
about understanding who you are. And I would walk into a room. And I remember walking into a room when I probably was 7, and it was like a Girl Scouts kind of thing. And I walked in the room, I walked around the room, and I walked out and I said to my mom, not my people. Because my mom would be like, your people are here, your people are there. Like she would say that kind of stuff. And I just knew it was not my people. So she
That
took me
is
to
amazing.
a baton like dance class, and we were going to walk in the Memorial Day parade in my town. And that's where I found my people because they wanted to perform and be seen.
Mm.
Right. And Girl Scouts was like a different field. It wasn't my
Mm-hmm.
field. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where I think I started, not I think, that's where I started acting and performing and being on stage. Those were my people, the people that wanted to be in the back and organize things.
Mm.
They weren't my people growing up. Now, if you're organized, please come sit next to me.
I was totally in Girl Scouts. I also did baton though.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Still do
but
that.
no, I did not. I knew what people were intimidated by me as a young child because like I see a lot.
Right.
And so I shut that down. I was just like, oh yeah, like no, just don't be. So looking for who my people were was like the furthest thing from my world,
I understand
which
that.
is why I am passionate about spreading the word. So
Yeah.
here we are.
Thank goodness. We need you.
Mhm. Thanks, Beth.
We need the people that you certify so that they can all help all of us have better transformations and really
Right.
lives because there's nothing like that.
Mhm.
I was like, this is now a commercial for Darla. If you
Yeah.
haven't worked with her, please go and work with her because she's special.
Thank you.
I adore
Yeah.
you so much. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. This has been
Mm.
like an in not intense, I wouldn't say like an intense, but like a comfortable conversation where we can go deep fast and have and
Yeah.
you always create a safe space. So thank you for that.
Thank you for who you are and your work in the world, and always looking out for people making money and actually like making their magic move in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna help them through the Fame Lab. We're gonna get lots of people in next year kind of be able to come in and really make a difference in something that feels uncomfortable and make it comfortable and make it streamlined so that it works. And
Mhm.
as I always say, and make you money.
And with that, that's this episode of Activating Magic. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.